Fox 14 presents the Biggs Fly Girls, Heroines of the Sky.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us. I'm Hema Muller. We're here at the War Eagles Air Museum in Santa Teresa, New Mexico, to bring you the story of hundreds of forgotten women. The Women Air Force Service Pilots, or WASPs, were the first women to fly during World War II. At a time when women were simply expected to stay home and be good wives, these women flew during World War II, transporting equipment, planes, and even helping train men for war. Their service freed up the men for combat duty. Just over 1,000 women earned their wings as WASPs, 22 of them right here in El Paso, and another 17 at Holloman Air Force Base. This is the story of the Biggs Fly Girls, Heroines of the Sky.
Well, there were 5 in the first group, and they added a bunch more. Well, the men flew with us as co-pilot or as a tow target operator.
There are still just a whole lot of people that, hey, what are you talking about? Women Air Force Service pilots?
I'm a flying wreck, a risk in my neck, and a hell of a pilot too. A hell of a pilot too. Like all the jolly good flyers, the gremlins treat me mean. I'm a flying wreck, a risk in my neck for the good old 318.
Well, my brother was a pilot, and he got me into flying.
She became the first commercially licensed pilot for the state of Nevada. By late 1942, she had accumulated over 500 hours of flying time. They convinced her to come along and maybe go ahead and take the physical. You may not pass anyways.
I want to be a Miss HP, and a little bit more. I want to be a WASP trainee, and a little bit more.
But our first training in the WASP was primary trainer, PT-19. I think it was in Houston.
So in January of 1943, she reported here to Houston from Reno. And I think it was January 15th, and she was part of what was the third class of these, the Women Ferrying Training Detachment group.
Roll out the airplanes, we got a big job to do. Roll out the airplanes, hurry so we can get through.
Well, when I first came to work out here, I came as a dispatcher for the CPT program, and those were all guys. They were learning to fly the Army way or the Navy way so they could go into the service. Most of them were college kids. I was just a little disappointed. I didn't think I'd want to work around that many ladies. But I'll tell you what, I learned to respect them, and it was so much fun. And my job was as a dispatcher was to keep up with their flying time. They were well, in fact, they call the first class the guinea pigs, because if they had not succeeded, there would not have been a program. Another thing that was kind of funny about it was that most of them had more flying time than their instructors. They had to have at least, I thought 200. Someone told me that they had to have 500 hours before they were accepted into the first class. They didn't really have a whole lot of respect for their instructors because they knew more than they did, actually.
Because you're going to be flying some heavy-duty aircraft, not the small Taylor craft that she owned, but some major-sized aircraft that were not built for women, So physically, you had to be able to handle those aircraft.
Of course, all of us in World War II came through the Great Depression. So we were used to being independent and getting by and doing what we had to do. I did without many lunches to pay for flying lessons when I first started flying. Like my friend Carol Bailey, who we flew a lot together. We both weighed 103 pounds at that time. So we would go to get in the B-25 with our parachute, and we would have 2 cushions under the parachute and 3 cushions behind us, so we could reach the pedals. We went through primary, basic, and advanced all at Adventure Field. And we flew in the morning and had ground school in the afternoon, link trainer at night. Or we would have ground school in the morning, fly in the afternoon, and link trainer at night. almost 24/7. Had a little time to sleep, but we had calisthenics and everything, and we had the same flight training as the men, except we completed ours in 6 months and it took the men 9 months.
Yes, Biggs Army Airfield. That's where I was based. We towed targets for anti-aircraft artillery, and we did a lot of night flying. They tracked us at night.
Well, one night, one of the gals and I were flying, towing targets, and the target was behind the plane, but the flak, and these were real bullets too, the flak started breaking in front of our airplane. And we didn't care for that too much. So we did a little evasive action and got out of the way and called their ground forces and told them that we were rolling in our target and going back to base, that they were supposed to be shooting at the target, not our airplane.
See, I came in, one wheel wouldn't come down, so I had to land on the belly. I was given a commendation for no damage to the airplane. They fixed the landing gear and had it flying again the next day.
We flew in the twin-engine Beech planes. We flew what we call window missions. They were trying to radar was just coming in at that time, and they were trying to train the boys at Fort Bliss on the radar. We would go up to around 10 or 15,000 feet and have a couple of crew chiefs in the back, and they would dump out boxes of chaff, and that would interfere with the radar. And the boys that were learning to use the radar were supposed to try to find the planes, even on the radar, even with all of that interference. We had no idea what we were doing at that time because they didn't even tell us what it was for. They just called it a window mission, and that was it.
Well, the PQ-8, I don't remember whether it was being flown by somebody else from a second airplane. I was only a safety pilot to take over in case of emergency, so I'm just riding, and the airplane is little PQ-8 was being flown by my buddy. We were just making practice landings. I broke the nose wheel. On landing, she broke the nose wheel, I should say, and flipped the airplane over on its back. And then they got me out of that, and they had a hard time deciding whether to give me teeth or not.
So the PTs, deep in the heart of Texas, we're never at ease in these big BTs. Deep in the heart of Texas, if you don't lock the latch, you'll fall out of the hatch. Deep in the heart of Texas, if you don't...
38 of the women never made it home. Lois Haley had the unfortunate experience of watching two of her friends' planes crash. One of those women was Leah McDonald. She graduated as a WASP in April of 1944 and was killed when her attack bomber crashed during a practice flight in June. Fellow WASPs remember that flight as her first in that specific type of plane. Another was Mabel Rawlinson, Lois's roommate during training. She was on her first night training flight with her instructor at Camp Davis, North Carolina. There were mechanical problems after the takeoff on that August 1943 night. The instructor says he told Mabel to jump twice, but she never did. He survived. She perished strapped in the cockpit. Mabel's sister says she wasn't able to escape due to a faulty latch.
Yeah, she was a real good friend. I missed her. Well, I don't know that much about her, except that she was a good pal.
She got good pilots.
Oh, yes, they all were.
We lost one girl, Leah McDonald, at Biggs Field, which was very sad. She hadn't had the experience that the rest of us had in like when we went to B-25 school, we had another almost 200 hours of flying in the B-25s, and that was good. And then we had been there at Biggs flying all kinds of different airplanes. One airplane in the morning and a different one in the afternoon. So on these 3 airplanes, you needed to read the book, sit in the cockpit, taxi it around, and when you thought you were ready to check out, then our commanding officer would be up in the tower, and you would go over your checklist with him, go down at the end of the runway and take off. So Leah wanted to check out on the A-24, which she thought was pretty much like the AT-6, but it was a bigger ship than the AT-6, not quite as big as the A-25 and P-47, but it was still a bigger, and it was a hotter ship. And it was a weird ship because on the left side was the throttle. When you started to take off, you had to push the throttle on the left side. Then on the right side, there was 2 levers. One was to pull up the landing gear, and right beside it was the dive flaps. This particular plane, evidently, the only thing we could figure out, that the dive flaps weren't secured, and Leah took off and got her altitude and reached over, because you had to then reach over and fly with your left hand and reach over here and pull up the gear, and she hit the dive flaps instead of the landing gear level, and of course that put the plane right in. And we were all out there, watching her. We were encouraging her and everything, and so it was pretty traumatic for all of us. We saw it and we knew what happened when we saw what the plane was doing, but they did hear her in the tower. Our commanding officer called everybody down to the flight line, and we had to go up that afternoon. Then she was sent, as I say, we were technically civilians, so the Air Force, the government did not pay for anybody's funeral. They didn't even pay for the pine box. We took up a collection, and Jacqueline Cochran was always contributing to everything. And one of our girls there, Carolyn Clayton, who was kind of our spokesperson in our squadron, went on the train with the body, took the body home, and stayed for the funeral. But we were not even allowed to drape the casket with a flag.
So you couldn't have her with full military honors?
No. No. We had, made lots of friends, and a lot of the guys that we flew with and everything, and some of the girls kept flying. And as with a lot of the men I'm sure you've heard about coming home, we figured, well, we loved our flying, and in our group, we flew a lot. We flew a lot of hours because we flew nearly 7 days a week there at Biggs Field. Some of us ferried planes for the government after surplus warplanes for a little while, and that wasn't as much fun as what we were doing, but we felt like we did a good job, and now that it was over, and we went on to other things and got married and had a family, and Brooksy and Lois Seiler, Holly, we called her, kept flying. Because I guess Holly was flying for up practically, she was still flying, I think, up till the time she died. It was a fun time.
I was a band instructor at Bowie High School, and I had a couple of elementary schools. One high school in Alamo and Hart and Bell School in El Paso. My favorite song, off we go into the wild blue yonder.
There's no question they were truly the pioneers. That they led the way, given me the opportunity to be where I am today. You know, opened the doors and made it available for women to be aviators and to fly in the military. I had the opportunity to meet several women Air Force service pilots last March. Went to a conference and met several of them, and it was incredible getting to listen to their stories and them tell some of their experiences that they went through. And just to realize that they did it, the same reason a lot of people are in the military now. They didn't join in trying to break down barriers or, you know, be pioneers. They did it because their country needed them. And that's, I think, where you mentioned the greatest generation. They volunteered because they were needed and there was an opportunity where they could help serve.
There's other women from that time that have been recognized. You know, everybody I think is familiar with Rosie the Riveter, so certainly there were lots of women working in the factories building these airplanes. But there wasn't anything about the women who flew them, you know. So this is coming around to that point. There were also, you know, there was even a movie about the women's baseball leagues that they started up because all the men were gone. So what are we going to do about baseball?
I don't know. I haven't seen or heard anything really about that gold medal.
I think we earned it, and I'm just really pleased about it. All of our friends are, and all of our, we have a lot of friends among the Tuskegee Airmen that we've met at the air shows and everything, and they're really pleased about it too. I think it's really great.
More than 60 years after their service, President Barack Obama this past July signed a bill that would honor the WASPs with a Congressional Gold Medal. The Tuskegee Airmen and Navajo Code Talkers are the only other World War II-era veterans groups to receive the honor. The surviving WASPs have yet to receive their actual medals. Thank you for joining us this afternoon for the special story of the Biggs Fly Girls, Heroines of the Sky. I'm Hema Muller.